Oh, hello there, Greg.
Oh, hey there.
Welcome,
Tim,
to the first ever episode 64 of the Kind of Funny Gamescast. We're doing something a little bit differently.
A little bit different. Why not
Just
shake it up,
bit.
as the kids say?
We only have some of the coolest dudes in video games.
Half the
here.
coolest dudes in video games are here.
But you'll be seeing them all together throughout the week. This episode's different because we did a bunch of interviews at GDC,
Right.
2016.
Right.
We interviewed a whole bunch of cool people, and we're like, let's make this a Gamescast.
Right, I
An
think
extra long Gamescast.
The biggest thing we took away from GDC 2015, which is Kind of Funny's first GDC, is that we did all this awesome content on Twitch live, and then it went into the ether, and not everybody saw these interviews. So this time around, we went in and approached it the way we approached all the streams we did for Kind of Funny the animated series, where we did it and we were live the entire day, but broke the day up, and these interviews packaged them as, what's up everybody, welcome to youtube.com. You know what I mean? Like, this is something that'll live in the annals of history. But it means 5 topics for you guys rather than your regular 4.
Yeah.
Because you're getting 5 starting on Sunday today. But
So
if
you're
they
still
wanted the
getting
whole
it
episode early.
broken up day by day, but now it's Sunday through Thursday instead of Monday through Thursday over at youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. You know, got to get the rigmarole.
Right.
Got to get it out
And if they
there.
want it early, they go
They
to...
go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, throw some money our way, and they can get stuff early, and that'll be great. You're probably one of those people that did that.
You already there?
Is
Are
this
you
one
already
worth
doing
$1?
that? Yeah, this one's totally... This
was
is
definitely worth it.
5
This one-
topics from the biggest names in video game development?
no,
Yeah, it's worth the
we're
$1,
big.
you punks.
This one's going to be awesome. So, who are we going to start off with, Greg?
I figured we'd go big and start with what was the final interview of GDC, Cliff Bleszinski from Boss Key.
Yeah, there
Were
you
you
go.
part of that one? It was Colin.
It was me and Colin talking
Yeah.
to him. And honestly, I think what you guys are about to see will change you. No jokes. One of the best interviews I've ever been a part of.
Oh, sure. Cliff's
Very
awesome.
fascinating motherfucker.
Yeah.
He knows his shit and
Yeah.
his ideas of where the industry's at and VR and all this stuff. Enjoy. What's up, guys? I'm Tim Gettys. This is Colin Moriarty. And over there, the one and only Cliff Bleszinski. Yay.
Since Greg's not here, I'm gonna have to do the Greg
The
lean back.
lean back.
I'm kind of happy Greg's on here because he's just so fucking intense.
I know
Yeah.
he is. He's super.
He's
intense.
off.
He's just like, can't
winning
keep up with that
awards and
level. He's
shit.
just, and I'm like, nah.
Cliffy, how's it going?
It's going great, man. We had a panel today.
How did it go?
Well, we announced, not to plug too much and too quickly, that our new game Lawbreakers is coming to Steam exclusively, which is kind of a no-brainer when you really think about it. Like, well, we're going to put it on an Origin, no offense. And then we also announced we're not going to do free-to-play with the game.
Really? So that's a huge change.
We were initially thinking free-to-play, and the more we dug in, the more we realized we weren't thinking about how to make the best game possible. We were always just worried about how are we going to monetize this. How are we going to monetize? I'm just like, dude, I want to make a great game that hopefully people want to throw some money at and they enjoy, right? So I'm looking, there's got to be a gray area between, free-to-play sleaziness and $60 disc-based. There's, maybe there's an impulse, initial gate in there, and maybe some interesting microtrans inside the game, but, we're kind of rethinking and upending that whole model because I announced the studio, and first off, people are like, Nexon? Really, Nexon? And I'm like, well, yeah, they make Kart Rider, but, they have some money, and they want to make Western games, and that's what I do. I make shooty Western games, and
Nothing wrong with that.
Well, not like Wild West. Anyway, and so and then the other thing was free to play. Like, you lost me at free to play, and I'm like, well, League is free. Like, come on, man. And so we want to have a halfway point with it.
Yeah. So that's interesting. That's kind of an honest moment, like of reflection to be like this. Maybe you benefit more from selling the game.
It's a kind of a meta statement on developing in 2016 and beyond, where you kind of. I stopped lying when I hit like 25 because I realized like I couldn't keep up with what I told anybody, so I might as well just be myself and be fucking honest with everyone. And so it's the same thing with game development. It's like just be you, be straight up. Be as honest as you can be with your community, and they'll trust you back. And occasionally they'll still yell at you because they care, or they'll call you horrible names on social media, but. If they show up and they play the game, and they're talking about it. That means you're doing something right.
Absolutely. What's the for people that aren't familiar with the Lawbreakers? What's the elevator pitch for it?
So it's takes place in the near future where there's been a massive earthquake, and the people have managed to rebuild, however, and gravity just gets funky. There's areas with no gravity. There's areas with increased gravity. Areas with inverted gravity, as well as humanity learning how to kind of harness these powers. So it's a character-based first-person shooter that's probably going to be like M-rated. Right now the trend is for kind of these Overwatch and Battleborn games that are very colorful and they're cool. I'll play the shit out of them. Yeah, and so I'm not saying we're going to go full war as hell kind of Gears and Killzone era from 10 years ago, but there's got to be a halfway point where we're going to be the grown-up version of that. They're going to be like kind of the G-rated ones, and we're going to be like the R-rated one in that version. And basically, all these questions that I asked about the verbs you're doing in the game as you're playing as these characters, you grappling hooks and jetpacks and double jumps and side dodges and inverting gravity yourself and creating zero-G pockets and basically just what verbs can you do in the environment with game types that yield maximum drama to make just a fun team-based 5v5 first-person shooter. That's kind of the super, super high level.
Awesome.
Of course, more to it. There always is.
And the game, you said the game's coming exclusively to Steam.
Yep.
Your heritage obviously is on PC, but you've been more well known.
My heritage is actually Polish.
Well, literal, yes, your literal heritage.
Well,
But
that's the thing is when I was doing, so the PC was always in a state of flux. So that's the beauty of the PC.
Right.
So back in the day, we started on PC with Epic and whatnot in shareware days. I'm old. And then, you decided to do console stuff for a while with Gears. And then I decided to return to PC. And when Gears was out, the Steam wasn't the juggernaut that it is, and PC games are making the transition from boxed to all digital, which was a bit of a bumpy one, and piracy was relatively high. I saw the numbers. And so at that point, I was like, yeah, I know there's too much piracy in the PC, in which PC gamers get very defensive, rightfully, because everyone always attacks their platform, even though it's pretty much the shit. It's amazing. And it's all I play things on right now is my PC. And so, and then deciding to just do something on PC because Steam has how many people installed base now? Like, it's huge. And, Valve, we've been talking to Valve and, Valve could use a shooter like this on their platform to kind of supplement the tremendous juggernauts that are, Dota and, CSGO and all that, right? So it's like, if you can find somebody like a Valve that you can kind of get an agreement with, and hopefully get all sorts of Vive dev kits to play with. Have you been over there at all? Or you just guys been nonstop over
We've
here?
been nonstop here.
I've not been to the
So
portal.
Chet from Valve is like this, Cyrus from the Warriors of VR, but by this very soft way about him. And he's like this kind of VR, in a good way, cult leader. Where there's all these indie devs doing all these awesome things with the Vive, and he's kind of leading the charge. And Oculus and Palm are also, and there's these figureheads of this new world order of what VR could be. And I personally love it. I think it's great. They're all sharing dev secrets on how to do traversal in VR, and how to deal with motion sickness, or how can you move around seated versus standing VR. What are the best techniques and ways to solve these kinds of problems. It feels very communal in a good way.
And that's what's cool about GDC. It's different than all the other shows because that's what it's about. And all I keep hearing from everybody is that all the VR shit, specifically with the Vive, everyone's just like, you gotta try this Star Wars thing. You gotta try this thing. It's gonna blow your mind. And it's cool to see all that
Have you
happen.
seen any of it yet?
Well, I mean, we went to the PlayStation VR.
The PlayStation VR is solid too, man.
Yep.
So they have a very good shot at doing well. It's one of those things the biggest mistake that, Chet and the crew made with the Vive was assuming you needed an entire room for it, which you don't. You can just have it set up at your desk, just like Oculus. So that's one of the issues with it. The other main thing is for case in point, I was visiting, I have a friend who has both the Crescent Bay and the Vive setup. And one of my wife's friends was free on a Saturday, and she's not into games or anything, right? She's not really into tech. She's just a friend of ours. And so we brought her in, sat her down on the floor, and showed her Henry, which is the Oculus Story Studio kind of movie about the hedgehog where you're in the house. And you don't even interact with him, right? But just the sheer delight to look around and see Henry's bed behind you, where you can see his quills sticking out. And he's just this little hedgehog who has no friends, and he just wants a hug for his birthday, and he makes a birthday wish, and maybe something magical will happen, right? And you can tell this is done by ex-Pixar and DreamWorks folks because the animation's just on point. And then put her in Lucky's Tale, which third-person VR games work surprisingly well. And I felt like the first time I played Mario 64 in Lucky's Tale. And then you put her in Tilt Brush as well as Job Simulator. And then just once those goggles come off, there's this thing that I don't even know if they've termed it in VR. It's like VR dissonance, where you spend a little while in VR. When you come back to the real world, it's coming out of the Matrix, you're like, holy shit, where was I? It's really cool. And the other experience I got to do, we posted on social. My friend Tom Ham over at the Create Ad Agency, they made this VR experience to promote the Robert Zemeckis movie The Walk, about which was based on Man on Wire, which is based on that awesome French dude who fired an arrow with a cable and made it top between the World Trade Center towers and tightrope walk the damn things.
Oh my God.
And so basically what they do is they tape a cord on the ground, and you put the Vive on, and they have the headphones on, and they have fans even blowing on you, right? It's like, okay.
Oh no.
Can you do it?
That sounds horrifying.
I made it 3 steps and I had to stop. And I know I play with the Vive extensively. I've done a ton of VR, but when you're standing at the top of a 100-story building and the wind's blowing, you hear the cars all the way down below. It goes against every part of your lizard brain to put your fucking foot out there.
That sounds awesome.
And
I want to do that right now.
It's really cool. And so my wife, of course, she's a little freaked out, but she did that just great. Brought a couple friends over, and varying degrees of success with it. But it's so convincing, and there's still a little bit of that screen door effect. It's not as high res as it can be. It's gonna get better and better and better, and humanity is doomed.
Did you make it across,
Lauren?
Yeah, at the very end, I just ran because I got nervous.
It's not called The Run. And of course, in the back of everyone's head is we're thinking about what happened back in the day with those buildings and everything. It's just this very surreal experience, and it was moving and dark and scary. And that's the thing is, I was talking earlier about when I had a chance when Brendan and Reby came to Epic's office years ago with this device that was duct taped together, and that Palmer made with Carmack, and I'm like, okay, this is gonna be big. I just felt something.
Wait, so this just blew my mind for a second. So you physically are walking?
Yeah, so since it's the Vive, it's room size VR. So you're actually, they had the cord taped down, and so it's only about, 10 to 15 feet. But you walk, you feel the cord beneath you. You look down, you see completely below you. You can actually tell. I shouldn't have looked down. That was my problem. And you walk to the other side, and you turn around, and you walk back. And people can't do it. I mean, I'm not even that much of afraid of heights. I'm more like an arachnophobe guy.
Yeah.
But this just got me, man.
Oh, can you imagine? Can you imagine
dude.
what they're going to do with that?
The biggest thing about VR is there's a lot of things I could go all day about VR, but one of the things that'll screw VR first is bad and cheap VR. Like people we got one too, and then if it's not VR's not perfect, it'll just make you sick. And there's always gonna be a small percentage of people that it might hit. There's people who get sick in cars all the time and things like that.
There's people who get sick playing Portal.
Yeah, exactly. So the inner ear and whatnot, it's a very complicated thing, but it's all gotten good enough now that the majority of people can use it, and it's worth fucking up your hair and having VR face for a couple hours because it's really that interesting. And the other thing is dumb VR experiences. That's why Oculus has a store that's curated. So it's not just some vomit roller coaster, or it's not just some big dumb cheap scare, because when you're next to a big robot who looks at you in VR, you feel it's right next to you. I did one of these multiplayer games with my wife. I can't remember what it was called on the Vive, where we're back to back and we're shooting robots together, and she's in the other room. But I turn around, I see her, her avatar moving around behind me, shooting, and of course, first thing we kind of do is try and shoot each other in the head.
Yeah, of course.
Marriage, and and then the other people I put in there, they try to grab the other person and just make out with their avatar, ah.
Yeah, I'm more of that type of person.
Yeah, make love or war, depends on how it is. And so, but feeling her right there in my back, I was like, oh, I'm in your bubble. I'm sorry. And it's just, it wasn't even a very well rendered avatar. It was some stock Unity thing or something. But it was just that you're there. And that's the big thing about VR. There's going to be solitary experiences. There's going to be the social experiences, what I think Zuckerberg believes in regards to, imagine, I'm at my house in Raleigh and we're all sitting here talking and, via the internet, you have an avatar and you have an avatar and all that. It's, if I can play ball with my niece who lives in Orange County and I live in Raleigh, or if I can play hide and go seek with our niece in New Orleans, even though we're in Raleigh, virtually, I mean, it's going to be pretty magical.
Yeah.
How do you think this is all going to shake out with these kind of three major competitors? We were talking to Lauren Lanning earlier. He's of the mind, and I brought it up specifically because at E3 he said PlayStation was going to do it, and that was when I thought it was unintuitive to say PlayStation's the one that's going to succeed. But with the price point being more affordable, the device that you need, the PS4 being probably way more affordable than the rig you need to run Oculus, how do you see it all shaking out?
Well, the first thing people always ask me is 2016 going to be the year of VR, and I said it'll be the year your rich friend has VR. And it's also one of those situations. PlayStation has a great shot at it. I've used the system myself. London Heist is awesome. They got a lot of great experiences. It's really good stuff. It's a great gateway, right? But very, very quickly, the resolutions the next year or two are just going to get higher and higher res. The sensitivity, the calibration, the rendering of your avatars, and it's one of those things. I think it'll be a short-term winner, but I think long-term, you look at Vive and Oculus. Vive, I think, is going to do very, very well if they can shed their, you need an entire room, good luck for the person who spends $4,000 a month in San Francisco having a spare room for this, or a person even in New York or Tokyo, right? Versus Oculus, I think, if I was a betting man, I think it'll go Sony short-term, Oculus long-term, and Vive and HTC somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
more of a specialty thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things I'm a big fan of VR, as I said. I'll defend it to the nines, but people are assuming you have the room. And this is a big assumption depending on, person's socioeconomic status, where they live. There's a lot of factors. Their significant other. What the fuck is this in my house? It's one of those things where we didn't have a TV room many years ago. Even when radio really came about, you see those old black and white photos of people with that big ass radio listening to War of the Worlds. That was the center of their living room. If it's as good as it can be, which I honestly believe it will be, people will find a way. If you're in a small apartment, get the thing installed where the bed can go up in the wall, in the classic movie where the person always winds up in the bed or the old Looney Tunes cartoons. And at the end of the day, and this is going to sound really dumb and sad for humanity, porn.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
can't wait
it's
for that.
so obvious to say that, but It's really like, really? Like, this is what's going to drive this? But it's like there's a lot of lonely people out there, you know, and an entire generation who grew up online that may or may not how to like socially interact as well as the earlier generation. That's just going to be like, this is all I need now.
Yeah. Vibe's doing it already.
That's the thing is I don't think, my gut is saying, from what I know about Sony, I don't think Sony's device will have porn.
Yeah.
You know, and I know Facebook's really careful about what you see on Facebook's feed. However, you know, when it comes to the VR setup, people will find a way for that one. And I just think it's funny that people are having sex right now with 360 cameras on their foreheads.
Yeah. It makes me happy to know that somewhere out there, they're thinking of the little people, you know?
I don't know. I had a buddy of mine was telling me a story about he had a friend who had the Oculus DK2 set up, and he said his spouse came home and he had the headphones on and the headset and pants all the way down, just going to town. And I was like, if I was his wife, I just would have taken my phone and just holiday Christmas card and then punched him in the nuts. But yeah, it's one of those things. The other thing I want to do is, you know, just play with, like, you know, take my friends with the Gear VR and find some sort of VR porn. And, you know, for instance, some of the guy friends that are heterosexual that I'm friends with, you know, take them and put it on where they're like, oh, I'm female, I have boobs. And what's he doing? Oh my God, right? Like, because there's reaction videos and everything in between, right? Just to kind of mess with people's heads a little bit. And again, horror has to be subtle in VR. It has to be just very gentle.
I like how you jump from that to horror.
Well, you know, if I stay in the porn thing too long, it gets weird, man. Then we're talking about, you know, all that. It is what it is. But that's the sad fact is porn drives technology for humanity half the time. So back to horror is jump scares in VR. Terrible idea. You know, one of my friends made a little VR experience a while back where you're in this creepy environment, kind of hanging out, and there's a wall full of like creepy dolls, you know, like the old ones missing an eyeball and stuff, like the little spider one from Toy Story, right? And they're all just sitting there, and you look away and you hear a sound behind you, and there's nothing there. And you look at the wall, and one of the very obvious dolls that was in the front is just gone. And then you turn around at the end of the hallway, the doll's just standing there. Just little things like that are so easy in VR to kind of make the back of your neck stand up, as opposed to just, you know, giant, you know, monster from The Ring pops in your face and makes you tear the headset off and throw it on the ground. It's like, they have a paranormal activity one that's supposed to be pretty good. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. Because there's apparently a story, some woman was using it, and she literally tore the Vive headset off and threw it in the ground and smashed it and broke it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So anyway, short-term PC lawbreakers. Long-term, we'll see where VR goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm interested. One of the things we were talking about with Donald Mustard yesterday from Chair, I asked Shannon Studstill this from Sony Santa Monica too, and I like, you have a great brain for the industry. Like, you see things and you have a good analytical mind for this stuff. And I know this is kind of a random left turn, but I'm curious about what you think about this. We were talking about pricing, and we were talking about how many games exist now. And I'm curious, do you having
in general or VR in general?
Just in general. I'm sorry.
Everyone's stack of shame.
Yeah, but just even if you go on PSN, there's like 10 new games a week, like, and you never heard of any of them. As someone like with a mind for this kind of stuff, and someone who kind of experiment with the free to play and it kind of, you know, the idea of doing it anyway, and then kind of going back to a pricing model, do you think games are too cheap or too expensive? Do you think that we like have a sweet spot with like a $60 retail game?
Well, I think it's a hugely complicated thing. You know, first off, there's too many damn games out there right now. When it comes to my personal taste, what I like is little VR experiences or little like personal games on Steam that are like, you know, $20 to $30 that are, you know, very experimental and cool. The whole $60 like disc-based thing, I'm kind of over it. Like, all the games just feel like they're screaming, please don't trade me in. And as a developer who made a mantra for some of our games, keep the disc in tray so they don't trade it in. I can see, collect 100 of these things. I'm like, this is just busy work. Like, you're just trying to keep me in your game instead of experiencing something else. In regards to pricing, digital will save us all. That's the funny thing about it all. You know, it's like, you know, you can have something that's $14.99. That's kind of a bite-sized experience. Or you can have, you know, The Witness, which is, you know, John Blow's like $39.99. People are like, all right, he makes millions. Like, good for him, right? So the thing is, you know, the free market, it can be a good thing and a bad thing, but in this instance, I think it's a good thing. But the big X factor in all of this is YouTubers and streamers, obviously set on stream. And the fact that, you know, there's this weird tail wagging the dog thing that's happening right now where people are deliberately making the most absurd video games imaginable and putting it out there just to see if it'll go viral, because the YouTubers and the Twitch streamers are trying to find wacky shit to play to have a funny reaction to, so that the kids who barely even play games and just watch them online have something funny to watch. It's like this weird, like the PewDiePieification of the world that's happened. And it's so funny, like, you know, when you look at, you know, these platforms, they're the new MTV that's crowdsourcing their celebrities. by way of, the fun things that they get to do with all these unique video games, as well as, cosplayers and that whole ecosystem. So it used to just be make a great game, put it out there, and then have your publisher spend $1 bazillion to market it at NCAA commercials. Now it's like 15 different factors coming together in order to hopefully make something go somewhat viral and actually like sell and make money instead of just getting lost in the ether of everything else that's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll pick Cliffy's
Can you
brain
tell
all
that
day.
espresso's kicking in? Yeah.
I'll
Veins right here.
What about you brought it up because I agree with you 100%. Way too many games. What like I'm surprised economic realities haven't stopped this from happening already. But why do you like? Why are like obviously there's a market imperative to make a game and make money. It's not an altruistic thing, but. Like, do you ever think there'll be like a correction that it seems to have been a bleed over from maybe the App Store and then maybe a little bit with Steam where there's just a lot of shit and I don't understand like where this is all coming from and how people just continue to raise capital and make these games.
I think you're going to see a bit of a bubble in the traditional disc-based AAA space because people, and you already saw this, like Titanfall did pretty well, but it seemed to hit a bit of a brick wall in regards to longevity. Evolve did okay, right? And gamers, they can smell value. And when you put out a multiplayer-only experience for $60 day one with a fake campaign that's just bots or something, gamers with DLC, gamers are like, really?
Mm-hmm.
I don't buy it. Like in my opinion, those games could have been free to play or some sort of mid-tier model. A lot of the ones that I like to cite are the examples is like a Counter-Strike Go. Small price of admission, like a cover at a bar to keep the idiots out, and everyone who's there paid a little small chunk of money to be there. With an interesting key crate system for microtrans and wrapped around a super airtight, one of the greatest first-person shooters still to date of all time. So that that's why Valve's been steadily grooming that, and it just keeps going, and it's still a great game. So, in regards to your average disc-based game, though, you've heard me rant about used games before. When I was younger and a lot broker, I would have bought the shit out of a $39.99 used game that used to be $60. You're damn right I would. I wouldn't care if the developers didn't make any money off that. But the ecosystem cannot sustain the feature set that gamers expect, the fidelity of the graphics, the amount of money the marketing campaigns cost, and developers actually getting paid and keeping their doors open. There's a hole in the bucket, which is, of course, used in rentals. And that's, I cite the game I worked on with People Can Fly Bulletstorm that I was, helping out with when I was at Epic. It was a great kind of, in hindsight, everyone's like, man, that was a great shooter. I'm like, yeah, the problem was A, I approved a shitty marketing campaign for it. I thought it was just funny and it was stupid. And B, the fact that it was kind of a campaign rental. It was like an 8-hour play through the campaign without co-op or anything. You're like, it had a tacked on kind of light co-op multiplayer, but it wasn't very good. Mm-hmm. So it's just once you play through that thing, you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to trade this in for the next game. And the cycle continues. It's a revolving door. And so in that space, Google Fiber is even coming to Raleigh. Like there's still plenty of parts of the world that don't have the internet, but so many of these games now are always online. Like, can you even play Destiny without an internet connection right now?
I don't know. I know you can't play The Division without an internet connection.
And it's coming sooner or later, no matter how much people were kicking and screaming when, Microsoft attempted to do like the digital sharing and all that stuff. And I don't want to say I told you so, but, I got a lot of heat back then when I wrote blogs about it. But, it's all these, online games they're here now, and like Netflix, look how big fucking Netflix is, and everyone watches Netflix, and, the world. There's always places that lag behind with shitty internet connection, rural areas, people in the military don't have a good signal. That absolutely is the case. So there's a case for actually downloading and having the stuff on whatever device. But, sooner or later, the most of the world's going to be connected. That's one of, Facebook's harebrained schemes is to have like balloons in areas that don't have internet to bring internet there so Zuck can grow his user base for Facebook and continue to take over the world, which is what he's doing.
Yeah, I think the problem is it's not there yet, even for the well-connected places.
Yeah.
Like even here in San Francisco, like at my house, I have my mom's house. I have great internet, but then the house I'm living at now, not so great internet, and that's just because of where it is, next to a mountain and all this stuff.
You can have the whole conversation about infrastructure in this country as well. But I'm going to watch John Oliver if you want to see something interesting about that. But eventually it'll all just be wireless and just be super fast, and we'll all probably get brain tumors or something.
It'll be worth it though. For my VR experiences from the cloud.
Yeah, we have I think we're on Time Warner cable for our internet at the house, and like with Google Fiber coming suddenly, I'm getting these calls from like, hey, we've upped your blah blah blah. I'm like, oh really now, motherfucker? Oh, I see how it is. Because fiber's coming. I'm warning you, fiber's coming. It's not the person's fault on the phone, but I can't help but call a little bit. It's like getting mad. It's like getting mad at your pharmacist. You're just like, these drugs are too expensive. I knew, and it's like the person's like, I didn't set the price. Talk to your freaking pharmaceutical company and your health care provider. Jesus Christ.
One of the last questions I want to ask, because I'm always been intrigued, even before I met you, about you, is that you are well known for being, to some people, brash, or to some people just, but to me, I've always thought that you just tell the truth. And I'm wondering, like, and I've had the pleasure to speak to you and know you in person over the last few years, to know that you're not just saying the shit you say to say it. Like,
to be fair, I can be an asshole on the internet. I mean, and when you have a culture that doesn't know where a person's coming from, they take something out of context. It's really, really easy to be like, "You said what? I hate you," without actually like reading what was actually said, because clickbait culture and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I mean, I speak what's on my mind. I don't like my fucking time wasted, and life's too short, And I mean, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I think those who've known me in person find I'm an okay person, and I have plenty of friends in the industry and whatnot, and I don't like kick cats in my spare time, but I do talk a little bit of shit, but it comes from the heart. I usually say what I think, and it's one thing to be on a side note, like for a case in point, on Twitter the other day, I got owned by a community manager from Ubisoft because I was complaining about Rihanna's new song, work, 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 and how I felt like there's this mumblification of hip hop that's been happening lately. And I say this as a 41-year-old kid who was raised in the suburbs of Boston, but I've always loved like good rap and hip hop. I just fucking love it. And so I was like, wow, rap's turning into a full mumble fest. I don't know what's going on out there. I can't even understand a word in this thing. And this guy's like, well, actually, it's Rihanna's background mixed with this kind of cultural kind of way of speaking that the song's actually about this, that, and the other. And I'm like, I quoted it. I was like, well, shit, I look ignorant now and I apologize. Now I know. And it's like one of the biggest things is, if you know something, be confident in the fact you know it. If you're fucking wrong, be willing to be like, oh, I'm sorry. It's even in my relationship with my wife. It's like, did you leave the, a little stupid, like, did you move my slippers? No. Well, I can't find my fucking slippers. And then later on, oh yeah, I left them in the bathroom. My bad. Like, it's important to be like admit when you're fucking wrong. That way, when you're right, people will know like that you're not invincible and you're a fucking human being. I just like to curse too, like Jeff.
Yeah, no, it's fun. No, I also really enjoy the mumblification. That's like just a good word. Whether or not you were right in that case, I believe in it too. See that? I won't stand for no bullshit. That trap queen shit needs to go.
Dude, give me Little Dicky any day of the week.
Thank you.
Well, I think he's awesome.
Yes.
I asked that question or just bring that up only because I wonder if, I feel like the gaming industry is like so full of shit sometimes, like, or a lot of times. I feel like it's like politics, and maybe it's like any industry, which is not. I've never been in any industry.
Well, I mean, the problem is it's like the stock market. Perception is reality in the world. Same thing with game design. If your rendering engine is showing some sort of reflections in the wall and they think it's actually reflecting the water, then you have reflections even though it's a hacked texture. So it's like, Randy Pitchford does this whole talk where he says video games are magic because Randy's he's a magician. He's on the board of the Magic Castle. And, if I do this whole thing and reach behind your ear and find a quarter and you think I actually found a quarter behind your ear, then you believe it. And so it's misdirection. It's also the incredibly short-term memory of humanity in regards to, if the internet comes down on you for some shit, just wait a week, and it'll blow over and they'll be on to the next, And so what you have is instant gratification culture, people that now have a platform and a voice, things taken out of context, as well as people looking for a reason to get upset about things. And so when you add in all that together, you get assholes like Trump, because he's willing to say what I'm thinking. Like, no, he's an asshole, but like when you have this world of this clickbait culture and people who are, like, you get this guy. So I'm not going to get into too much politics, but I tweeted about that earlier, which is why I think you see this kind of thing.
Well, Cliff, thank you very, very,
that was awesome.
Very much. This was a great interview. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, me too.